All right, welcome to the Pandaverse. I'm Elgon Williams, and today we're going to have a reading from Sherrie Orvik from her book Killer Secrets. Welcome, everybody, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Sherrie?
Okay, so my name is Sherrie Orvik. I was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest. I still live here. It's fantastic weather. We have 4 great seasons usually, 6 if you include construction and smoke seasons. This year has been pretty good though. No fires, big fires yet so far, so that's great. I have 2 adult children, I guess, and 1 grand dog who I am currently dog sitting. So that's been kind of fun. And yeah, Killer Secrets was my debut novel. So
All right,
that's a
what are you
little
going to be
about me.
reading? What are you going to be reading for us today?
I am going to read the opening couple pages, anyways.
Yeah, the exciting part.
The exciting part, well, hopefully the exciting part. There's a lot of exciting parts, but I don't want to give anything away, so I'm just going to start here.
All right.
Get out, run. The words roared through her groggy mind, and her heart pounded in her chest. She squinted against the brightness of the sun through the windshield. Tall trees broke the blue of the sky, fast at first, then slower as the car decelerated. A slight breeze brushed against her face, and the warm air smelled of pine and earth. Her mind flooded with memories of time spent at the old family cabin in the Colorado Rockies. Woods. She knew the woods, knew she could be safe there. If the car stopped, if she could get out before her attacker realized she was coming too, if she could run, if mere inches separated her from the door handle and freedom. Her fingers burned to reach for it, but the car still rolled over what sounded like crunching gravel. Gravel? They weren't in town anymore. How long had she been unconscious? How far had they come? It didn't matter. All that mattered was getting out, running as fast as she could, as far as she could. The car jerked, the sound of the wheels stopped. Her heart jumped into her throat. Now, get out. The world was a blur, her vision spinning and dim, but she clawed toward the nebulous handle and managed to open the door. Now, the driver said, his voice distant and warped as her vision. Don't be ridiculous. Run. She has a little crash. She has a little chase. Who knows what happens to her next?
It's been a while since I read this.
It's been a while
I
since you've read
remember the opening scene very well.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
She's she's having to escape a really bad person,
Yep.
and in the process of escaping, um, she finds her way to the highway, only to get hit by a car.
Yep. She's having a really bad day.
Really bad day.
A really bad day.
I like I like the way that it starts out with a lot of action. I know a lot of books do that now because everybody has a real short attention span, and
Yes.
they're used to watching TV shows that are kind of constructed that way,
Mm-hmm.
where there's not a lot of build up before the action. And I've noticed a lot of Pandamoon's books start that way. When I first read your book, I thought it was kind of like Laura Kemp's book, the way that started out. Completely different feels to the book after that, but just the beginning
Yeah.
sequences are similar. And even Christine Gabriel's first book, The Crimson Forest, starts out kind of fast with action. So what compelled you to write this?
It was a story that, well, it wasn't really a whole story. Really, all I had was a picture of this woman running out of a hedge and getting hit by a car. But the idea had been with me for quite a while. And I happened to meet a woman who is a very well published author And she asked me if I had, have I started written this. I told her, I said, I've always wanted to write a book. And she kind of chuckled and said, well, yeah, I hear that a lot. And she asked me, how much of this idea I had written. And I said, well, none. I couldn't write a book. I don't know anything about writing anything. And she said, well, if you already have an idea, you're already started to get there. So she said, just write. And it sounded awfully simplistic, just write. But she asked me every day for months if I had started writing it. And so finally I started writing it, and it just kind of all came out. The story wrote itself, really.
When I have a weird idea,
Yeah.
which I have a lot. I mean, you can ask Alan. I have weird ideas all the time. But when I have a weird idea, I'll let it kind of mull over in my mind for a day or two, and maybe I'll sit down. And the first thing that I do, if I sit down and start writing the ideas, I may get the basic concept of the idea down, the framework, and then I have a couple of characters that I introduce, and they have a dialogue, and then through the dialogue, I find out more about the story and the conflicts and everything from the characters themselves.
Yep.
And I think that's the approach that I use. I don't have a lot of setup and a lot of background going on initially. I put that in later.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's what works for me. And I've talked to several other authors. They do something similar like that. But I'm what they call a pantser, you know,
Same.
as an author goes.
Yeah.
I put an outline structure on something, but it's after I've written the draft.
Yeah.
So I'll
Yeah.
start moving stuff around. I use something like
Yes.
Scrivener, and I'll move chapters around to build the pace and the tempo, and
Right.
and go through and rewrite things so it makes sense with all the moves that I put in. So
Right.
it
Right.
becomes an involved process after that. So, I mean, I may have a draft written in 3 or 4 weeks, but it's really a basic draft.
Yeah.
And it may
Yeah.
take a year to get it where I want it to be before I send it off for publishing or rejection. So,
Right. 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 Yeah, that is absolutely how I write. And I read something in Stephen King's book, uh, on writing, I think it's called. But in his book, he said he doesn't really sit down with an outline and a big draft. He said to him, it's like uncovering a dinosaur. You see something sticking out and you just start uncovering it. And
start digging.
you start digging. And that is definitely, I tell people I either have to write or get into therapy, because I just follow these people around that are in my head and write down what they do. That's,
Yeah, I find my dreams are a lot stranger if I'm not writing.
oh, much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so I think there's a cathartic effect, going on there. I also think that everybody who writes fiction, I don't know about other types of writing because mostly I write fiction, but I think everybody that writes fiction's a little toward the edge. Okay,
Yeah.
I won't say we're all crazy, but yeah, we are.
Yeah,
Um,
we are.
we
We
talk to
find fun.
ourselves, even if
Mhm.
it's in a mumbled voice. We have an inner dialogue going on. Um,
Always.
something strange happens, like I could have sworn that I locked that garage door.
Mhm.
And then you open up the garage door carefully and you look out in the garage, and
Yep.
you may walk around your entire house, and all of a sudden you got, wow, this would be a great scene for a book.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah. Oh, one of my friends, we were out kayaking last summer and I must have said 5 times, "Oh my gosh, look at that. That's the perfect place to hide a body." And she finally, and it's happened a couple times. We've gone on a couple road trips and I'll say something like that and she just looks at me and shakes her head and said, Do you ever think about other stuff other than where to hide bodies?" I said, "Well, yeah."
Well, you're always solving a mystery. You see everything in terms of mysteries. I mean, most of my books aren't really mysteries, but they have mysteries in them. Because
Yeah.
there's mysteries always occurring in your life. They may be
Oh,
real minor
yes.
mysteries, but there's always little
Yep.
things coming up like
Yep.
what was my sister talking about there?
Uh-huh.
What was she not telling me?
Uh-huh.
And
Yes.
all this stuff going on in your mind. And if you told most of the people that the stuff that's going on in the back of your mind, it would frighten them. And then if they went and looked at your
Yes.
browser history on your
Then they'd be,
computer, they would really be.
somebody might be going to jail. Yeah. Yep.
So
It,
what's
it,
what's next?
I am currently working on a sequel called Killer Revenge. And the hero and heroine from Killer Secrets find themselves in a pretty dark, scary place that I don't know if both of them will come back from. We'll see what happens there. Um, and I'm working on several other projects. Again, all those people yelling at me in my head, they always want to be first in line, and I'm always telling them it's not your turn. But sometimes I'll have to sit
They're
down
always
and
like
just,
elbowing the other one out of the
oh,
way.
it's terrible. It's terrible. They can't all just get along. I don't know. But yeah, I've got several things that I've got at least ideas written out for, but a couple projects that I'm a little over halfway done with, and yep, working on the sequel.
I think I've got about 40 projects in
Oh my gosh.
different stages of being completed. I'll probably never finish them all,
Yeah,
but
that's a lot of
some
people
of
in
them
your
are
head.
interconnected and some of them form background material that I use in other books. When I used to work in retail years ago, and I would try out ideas. When it was slow, in the
Yeah.
store, I'd be
Oh,
walking around
yes.
and I would stand there. I'm a manager, so I'm supervising whoever it is, and I'm helping them, pack down something, fill the shelves and the peg
Yeah.
hooks and everything, and um, I'll just float a trial idea on them, to see if it's believable or not,
Yep.
And
Yep.
I mean, most of those employees who knew me figured out at some point that I was doing that, but they must have thought I was a really strange person at times. And I reinforced it a lot by doing strange things. Like there was one night, um, it had been a real slow night, so we were pretty clean and everything going around. And I'm like walking around the store, checking to see if all the customers are out, and see the progress for the employees and everything. And I got on my handheld phone that we carried around, and I clicked access to the pager, and I went, "Get out!" Like that. And there was still a customer in the store, and they were like,
Oh no.
"Ooh."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That, yeah, my coworkers all know I'm crazy, so I don't try to hide it from them, you know.
So what is it that you do that when you're not writing?
I actually am, during the day, I build fiber optic patch cables. So a lot of people don't know. I didn't when I started. I didn't know a lot about fiber optics. So I usually just tell people I make your cell phone and your cable TV work.
Make it work faster
Yes.
at
Yeah.
the speed of light.
Yes, at the speed of light. And we do a lot of work for we provide a lot of fiber optic cables for some of the major power companies in this area too. So everything from power to traffic lights, cell phones. So yeah, I that's what I make.
Now you live in the eastern part of Washington State, right? Is that
Kinda. I was born and raised over there in Spokane, Washington. It's very
okay?
eastern Washington, but my job is actually in Idaho, and so I moved across the border into Idaho, and I'm just over the border. I'm 20 minutes, if that, from Spokane. So yeah,
It's beautiful country there.
it is gorgeous country here.
I've only
I mean,
been there. I've only been there a couple of times.
yeah, I can go, 10 minutes and I'm at the lake, a big beautiful lake. I'm 5 minutes away from hiking trails. There's just, there's
Yeah,
so many lakes, kayaking and yeah, stuff to do year round.
yeah. You think when you're there, you think that you're so far away that you've got to be off the grid, you know.
Um,
And I was I have a friend that lives in Southern California, and she was with a theater company that was touring, but I didn't know that she wasn't in Southern California, and she's up in
oh,
Idaho, and
okay.
I called her on her cell phone, and she picks up and she goes, "Hello," and I said, "Hey, are you busy?" And she goes, "Well, I'm like climbing something right now." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, I'm like on the side of a mountain right now."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? And you got cell
Why'd you
signal up
answer the
there? You
phone?
got cell signal up there?" She goes, "That's what I was thinking. I got cell."
Yep. I know there's cell signal everywhere. It's funny. It's just we're blessed to be here. It's a great area and we're close to, I mean, it's not so small town that we have Costco, but it's still a small town. It's a really nice, it's a nice area. But Spokane's pretty big. It's getting pretty big. But it's strange how just driving 20 minutes away and I'm in this little town that feels like a whole different.
Well, there's a lot of people. Like Idaho is one of the fastest growing states right now
Um, yep,
because people are moving from California
yep,
and
yep.
I mean I know somebody that moved from um, Las Vegas here in Las Vegas up there.
Yeah.
So and it's from all over. everybody's
Mm-hmm.
everybody's
Yep.
trying to find paradise and then they'll corrupt paradise and they'll have to move somewhere else.
I know. It's like we'd love to have you up here, but don't corrupt
Yeah,
us.
don't bring your bad habits and your pollution and
Exactly. Don't bring the stuff that made your state not livable anymore. Leave that there. Yep, for sure.
your nickname's Mustang Sherry, right?
Yes.
All
Yes,
right.
it is.
So explain that.
Well, I've loved Mustang cars. My pretty much since I was old enough to pay attention to cars. My granddog wants to go outside, so she's barking at me.
I want you to take her a ride in the Mustang.
I have taken her for riding Mustang. I'm gonna have to let her out real quick, so we're gonna
Okay.
be on the move. On the
All
move.
right. All right.
Um, so yeah, I've wanted Mustang forever, and finally, I think, gosh, 5 years ago now, I finally got one. So I have a 2006 black convertible, and it's my favorite car ever.
Yeah, that's the best.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I didn't think I would like a convertible, but I love it.
Oh yeah.
Driving around, wind in my hair, you know, it's like flying.
Yeah, I used to drive a pickup truck to and from work and finally wore out the motor in it and it like crashed and I had to get a rental car to drive to work until I bought something else. And they upgraded me. Like I rented a really compact car because I figured I'll just rent something to get to work.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
upgraded me to a convertible with,
Oh,
like a mid-sized convertible. And I'm like driving around in this thing and, I had the top up because I'm not real big on, but I was in Florida at the time and I said, well,
oh
heck,
gosh.
yes, I pulled over to the side of the road, put the top down. I'm like driving around, and I hadn't been in a convertible since I was a kid because my sister had a Corvair Monza GT convertible, and my dad
Wow.
had a 63 Impala convertible.
Oh my gosh,
And
wow.
so we used to drive around in convertibles all the time. It had been a long time since I've been in a convertible, and I was like, I could get used to this. And
Uh-huh.
so when I got home that night, it was like about 7:30 when I got home. My youngest daughter, my kids were still with me back then. My youngest daughter comes outside and she goes, "What happened to your truck?" And I said, "It broke down. I gotta get it fixed or buy a new one or something." And she said, "So this is a rental?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Why don't you get in? We'll go down to the beach and get an ice cream cone." So we're like driving around in the convertible, and she's like, "That's the first time she's ever been in a convertible." And she goes, "This is nice."
It's great. I really didn't think I would like having a convertible, I always figured, well, it's gonna mess up my hair, and it does, and I love it. It's great. Like having my hair all convertible.
Have you got a title for your next book yet?
So far at this point, Killer Revenge.
Killer Revenge.
Killer
Okay.
Revenge.
So Killer Secrets is available now. It's
Yep,
on
Amazon.
Amazon. It's available at pandamoonpublishing.com.
Yep. And I
So
saw it on Walmart.com. Apparently
it's
it
on
can.
walmart.com. It should be on barnesandnoble.com.
Yep. Yes, it is. Yep, all
Okay.
over.
So
Anywhere books are
wherever
sold.
you get your books, it's available. So
Yep.
just jump on there and get it. It's an exciting book. Starts off fast and it just keeps going. And there is a surprise ending
Oh, yes.
that
I
I
have.
don't think anybody yet has seen coming. So there's a
Nope.
challenge
Nope.
for me.
Yep. I haven't had one person yet figure that out.
All right. Thanks again, Sherrie.
All right. Thank you so much.